Hey guys, my name is Lucas, and I did a terrible thing for the sake of my friend. Instead of thanking me, my friend gave me a full-fledged life lesson that I would never forget. George and I have been friends since childhood. We had never parted since we had been in kindergarten, and it always seemed to me that I hadn't ever had such a closer friend because he was like a brother to me. And we both came from well-to-do families of the same class, so we didn't even have any conflicts. We thought in the same way. But George's parents were business people, and they often went on business trips. Then, when his younger sister was born, his dad was more often on the road, and my parents always hung out at home because they had an online business. So most of the time, George and I stayed at my place. We played video games, robbed the refrigerator, and had fun in the backyard. But we also had been coming to his place when his dad brought back a rare souvenir and stuff from his trips. It had continued this way until I was 18. You can imagine it had been this way like my whole life. Well, most of it. But once my friendship with George was subjected to a very serious moral test. To be exact, it was only a moral test for me, of those, in which there's no correct answer. The fact is, George offered me to steal. That day, he came to visit me, but for some reason, he did not immediately sit down at the game console as we usually did on the weekends. He started telling me something. Anyway, some nonsense. I didn't even listen, but his behavior alerted me. Usually, he was calm as a rock. And now, he behaved too nervously, and by his standards, it was probably a full-fledged panic. When my parents gave us some tea with my mom's pies and discussed the latest news from George and his family, they left. And my theory was totally confirmed, because George suddenly jumped up to me and said I had to help him to commit a crime. It turned out his dad wanted to leave the family. George overheard this by chance in his dad's office, and also his dad wanted to take all the money with him, not leaving them a penny. Of course, my friend did not like this idea, but what could he do? And then George remembered he knew the code for his father's safe, where his dad kept a fairly large amount of money, just in case. This money should have been enough for him and his mom for many years, exactly until George himself would be able to stand on his feet. But to get the money from his father's safe, he needed to steal them. And so that no one suspected it was George. Otherwise, it would be a failure. Now, you can imagine how I felt at that moment. On the one hand, helping a friend is a sacred thing, especially in such a delicate matter. I immediately remembered how once George was fighting shoulder to shoulder with me against the guys from another district, how he supported me when my beloved dog died, how he was there with me when it was hard. And on the other hand, theft is a completely different case, on a particularly large scale. A prison or a friendship? I honestly thought for a long time and tried to figure out the ways of not doing what George wanted to do, but unfortunately, there was no decent option. The only other way of not stealing money was cowardice and betrayal. So, I chose helping a friend. How about you? What would you choose? Write in the comments. I am Georging to hear your opinion. According to my friend's plan, my job was actually to steal the money. I should get into his dad's office, open the safe, take out all the money. And then, through the window, I should get out into the garden and run through the backyards to the abandoned house. We had one just at the end of the street. Kids had been scared with different stories about ghosts there. We should hide the money in a secret place there and go home pretending I spent all day at home. And George had to turn off the security cameras at this time and watch that his dad didn't return before I did my job, and that no one else suddenly came to the office from home. The plan was simple and ingenious. Well, everyone always has a plan. Before the operation, George repeated 10 times that he would turn off all the cameras and no one would ever see me anywhere. Then I checked again to make sure I had learned the password to the safe. I had taken my gloves and my mask, and that I was really sure of what I was doing. I was so sick of it. My nerves were broken down in such a situation. I was just waiting for us to get on the case. And we came to the big moment. On the prearranged signal, George would drop a large box that was standing on their porch and deafen half of the neighbors with that noise. I would slip through the open back door and trot into the office. I knew George's house better than my own, so I didn't have any problems with the navigation there. The safe was also easily opened, and there was money there. Lots of money, a full safe of big bucks. And in fact, it was strange because, for example, my dad keeps only some small amounts of money and my mom's jewelry at home. He thinks collecting dollars in bundles like this is both stupid and unprofitable. But then I was so panicked that someone would come and notice me that I was acting automatically and tried not to breathe or think again. I quickly put everything in a bag, closed the door behind me, and got out the window. Then I ran through the backyards as planned, found a secret place in the house, put a bag in it, covered it with some rags on top, and quickly ran home. I had almost calmed down. Even my hands stopped shaking when the police came to our house. I thought there would be an interrogation of my inner circle, and I was prepared to lie, but it turns out to be much worse. Without any questions or arguments, the police shoved some papers in my parents' face, handcuffed me, and took me to the detention places. I spent 2 months in the prison cell. It was a good thing that no one else was there at that moment. At least there was some semblance of comfort. But I didn't care about the terms. I didn't understand anything, and they didn't hurry to explain anything to me. The suspense was killing me, literally. I thought I was going mad or worse, and I couldn't imagine what had gone wrong. Honestly, for some reason, I was sure George was sitting in the next prison cell. I thought his dad had somehow figured us both out and decided to put us in jail for what we did. Or not to send us to a prison cell, just to frighten, but both. And then there was the trial, and all my illusions fell down like that avalanche. At the trial, the truth was revealed that George was there, yeah, but as a witness. He would stand there and tell me in all seriousness how I had asked him about the location of the cells, how I had been hanging around his dad's office all the time asking about thefts. I even went so far as to steal the password to the safe almost at night. Nonsense, complete nonsense. And when I was given a word, I had to say about it, and I told the version of events that I knew and in which I participated in. Well, about George's dad cheating on his wife and that George didn't want to be broke after his parents' divorce. But of course, no one believed me, or at least even tried. Unfortunately, everything was against me in that story, and the cameras clearly showed who was digging in the safe, and the lack of money in the place I indicated, even the lack of a trace of money, that was not a surprise. I was kept in the prison cell for more than 2 months. George and his dad had already sent all the money abroad many times or simply hidden it. And most important, at the time of the theft, I was just 18. That is, for the court, I was an adult, and I could assume full legal responsibility. And everyone used this fact, just throwing me in prison for a long 8 years. My parents tried to appeal, and the kids at school, teachers, and neighbors supported them. They wrote some petitions there, stood with meetings, and demanded if not to release, then at least to understand what was happening, because I would never do it. But along with me in the prison there were a lot of other guys like me who would say they were innocent. So no one believed me or my parents or their support group. And it would be all right. It was my own fault. I was a fool that I believed my friend and got caught by the police. I could have been a little bit wiser, and I should have thought before I had been participating in this kind of mischief with a clearly criminal intention. But if I decided to play a hero, I should suffer like a real hero. But I was very concerned about the question, why? Did our friendship with George mean something only to me? And all these years, he just pretended to call me his brother? You know, even sitting in jail for maybe 8 years and how I couldn't see the fact that a young boy can act a friendship during 15 years and all this was made for the sake of an insidious plan in the future, I did not believe in it, but I wanted to know the truth. When I was allowed to make calls, the first person I contacted was George. I didn't want to make a claim against him, but it was important to close the story of betrayal to an end. It tormented me, kept me awake, and the easiest way to find out the truth was to ask the person who knew it. George did not resist, although I could not hear the guilt in his voice. He honestly told me that at first, he didn't want to use me because we were friends, but his dad convinced him it would be more reliable with me. I really often hung out at their house, and the plan was simple: to persuade a trusting idiot to fake a theft from a safe, and then contact the insurance company. The fact was that George's dad had problems in his business, and the stolen amount plus insurance payments should have covered all his debts, and even something else would remain. Anyway, I was sold just for the sake of money. Yeah, of course, George's parents knew everything. No one turned off the cameras, and the money was carefully put in a safe in a sufficient quantity in advance. Then I was caught like a fly in a spider's web and was eaten by a spider. That's the story, folks. I don't know if I'll ever trust people again. Write in the comments if you ever experienced a betrayal and how you coped with it. Support me with your likes and share my story with other naive folks like me, and may no one else ever be in my shoes.